Hey, brothers. Today I'd like to talk about my political beliefs as a whole because there seems to be a lot of confusion amongst my followers. I was talking to some guys last night in DMs, and they thought me to be something I absolutely am not. So I'd like to clear that up. As well, I'd like to talk about my grand vision for the future of America. And I don't want to sound like a LARPer, I don't want to sound like a dreamer, but I think it's the natural course for any political party or political group, political page to eventually, when they get big enough and when they get influential enough, to bring their ideas off of the screen into the real world. So I'd like to discuss that as well. So right off the bat, I would consider myself to be a fascist. I don't subscribe to any particular strain of fascism because, as with anything, all strains have their pros and cons. And before you go down to the comment section and start spamming, Robert, how can you call yourself a fascist and an American traditionalist, you little twat? Well, if you look at the three easy parts that sum up fascism, everything in the state, nothing outside the state, nothing against the state. And if you look at American history, you would find out that America has a sort of fascist tradition. Some people argue that, although not invented yet, technically, Teddy Roosevelt and Andrew Jackson took actions that would be characteristic of a fascist leader today. I would argue that although it wasn't invented yet, America does have a sort of fascist tradition. And although I don't subscribe necessarily to any one strain of fascism, I believe that if fascism did come to America in the form of a mass political movement, Mosleyite fascism would be the easiest to implement. Mosleyite fascism was unlike any other strain of fascism. Mosley supported the idea of a strong democracy comprised of men of action who could be dismissed at any time if they lost the public's favor, which would be huge, saying as America, excluding our colonial days, has never had a king. We've only ever been a democracy, and democracy is all we've ever known. And a democratic fascist party would be much more welcome than a fascist party who favored a dictator. Another reason I believe Mosleyite fascism would be the easiest to implement in America is because Mosley was not an anti-Semite. Mosley believed firmly that men should be judged based on their actions, not on their race, which I'm not saying I agree or disagree upon, but that's just what Mosley believed. And this lack of anti-Semitism would most likely draw more followers to a fascist party, as anti-Semitism is kind of a taboo thing in America. If you say anything bad about Israel, most Republicans hop on your ass and just scream at you. But I think that would play a huge factor in the rise of a fascist party. My dream for the future of America, I would say, matches up relatively closely with the dream Mosley had for the future of Britain. A strong democracy comprised of leaders in every single category. Leaders in science, leaders in business. Strong men of action. Now, I flip-flop back and forth on this topic a lot. I used to believe America should be ruled by one dictator and one party. But as I've matured, as I've learned more, I've come to the realization that a dictatorship in America will never be possible without another civil war. Democracy is too deeply ingrained in our society for the mass population to ever accept a dictator. So we have to work with what we have. And what we have is a strongly democratic society that will not change without another brother war, a war we should prevent by all means. The government in my dreams is an authoritarian one, and I've said why it's an authoritarian one in my commentary on libertarianism, but I'll repeat myself. Contrary to what most right-wing libertarians believe, traditional values cannot be preserved in a libertarian society. Look at our government today. Although authoritarian in certain aspects, they're quite laissez-faire when it comes to civil rights. And look where that's gotten us. Their entire lack of concern has seen the rise of the LGBT. Their entire lack of concern has seen the rise of Black Lives Matter terrorists. I believe in a government that has the authority to clamp down on degenerative organizations like this and preserve traditional values for society as a whole. My ideal America is a very, very limited socialist state. And before you hit that unfollow button as hard as you possibly can, just hear me out. If our nation is allegedly a nation of the people, by the people, and for the people, should it not also provide those people the most basic of necessities, such as healthcare for all and food supplements for the needy? I think if a government is allegedly of the people and by the people, it should ultimately serve the people's, at the very least, basic necessities. And although I believe in socialized healthcare, I am a very strong opponent of Obamacare. I am a very strong opponent of whatever the Republicans could replace Obamacare with, because ultimately whatever they do will increase our taxes and take more money out of our paychecks when they should be taking money out of their own budget. Just this last year, the government spent $3.1 billion on vacation leave for employees who had practiced misconduct in the workplace. They spent $283,000 on bird watching. If the government cut down on this idiotic expenditure, they could find the money to provide basic necessities without increasing our taxes. This has been a relatively short look at my political stance, but I just wanted to get it out there because a lot of people, I know there's been confusion out there. A lot of people assumed I was a capitalist, which I can understand. One person thought I was an anarchist, which I can't really understand, but you know, I guess I haven't really made my stances very clear. I've just been shitposting a collection of other stuff. So, now that that's out there, if you agree, that's wonderful. If you don't agree, that's equally as wonderful. You believe whatever you want. I don't care. But for now, this is the American Traditionalist.